after the Johannesburg handshake. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping discuss unresolved LAC issues.
In a conversation with President Xi Jinping of China, Prime Minister highlighted India's concerns on the unresolved issues along the LAC.
Rahul Gandhi targets the Prime Minister in Ladakh.
हिंदुस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री ने ऑपोजिशन की मीटिंग में कहा कि हिंदुस्तान का 1 इंच किसी ने नहीं दिया है। ये सरासर झूठ है।
Asaduddin Owaisi joins in.
अगर कोई घुसा नहीं है, ना कोई घुसेगा, तो फिर आप 19 राउंड की क्या बातचीत कर रहे हैं? फिर आप डिसएंगेजमेंट की बात क्यों कर रहे हैं? फिर आप इसका मतलब चीन घुस के बैठा है, तो झूठ किसने कहा?
BJP hits back at the opposition.
चीन के बारे में आधारहीन और अनर्गल बयान देने के आदी हो गए।
Politics escalates as India-China talk disengagement. Divided India, advantage China. That's our top focus on India First. Hello and welcome. You're watching India First. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping have decided to instruct officials to intensify efforts to expedite disengagement and de-escalate at the line of actual control in Ladakh. They spoke briefly on the sidelines of the BRICS summit at Johannesburg. However, domestic politics has intensified. Rahul Gandhi of the Congress party has accused the Prime Minister of being economical with the truth on loss of territory. The BJP, on the other hand, has asked the Congress to come clean and clarify what the BJP called was a pro-China stance of the Congress right from the times of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, when the BJP says the Congress or the government sent rice for Chinese troops who invaded Tibet, to Rahul Gandhi's interaction with Chinese diplomats. We debate, but first we bring you the day's developments. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a meeting on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Johannesburg. Sources in the Ministry of External Affairs says it wasn't a structured bilateral meeting and described it as an informal meet. MEA sources say there was a pending request from the Chinese side for a bilateral meeting. However, China in an official statement maintains that it was India that requested for a bilateral. It was the first direct interaction between the two world leaders after the brief encounter at the G20 summit in Bali in November last year.
Prime Minister underlined that the maintenance of peace and tranquility in the border areas and observing and respecting the LAC are essential for the normalization of the India-China relationship.
The MEA says Prime Minister Modi and President Xi agreed to direct officials to intensify efforts for expeditious disengagement and de-escalation on the line of actual control. The informal Modi-Xi meet over the border standoff in South Africa has stoked a political showdown back home. While the Congress accused the Prime Minister of lying about the border situation, the BJP charged the Congress with helping China during their rule.
चाइना ने हिंदुस्तान की जमीन ली है। हजारों किलोमीटर जमीन हिंदुस्तान की चाइना ने हमसे छीनी है। और दुख की बात है कि हिंदुस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री ने ऑपोजिशन की मीटिंग में कहा कि हिंदुस्तान का 1 इंच किसी ने नहीं दिया है। यह सरासर झूठ है।
2020 में बीजिंग के एक थिंक टैंक ने, जो वहां की गवर्नमेंट से रिलेटेड माना जाता है, उसने यह शब्द प्रयोग किया है कि चाइना इज पासिंग थ्रू इट्स वर्स्ट डिप्लोमेटिक आइसोलेशन पोस्ट तियानमेन स्क्वायर। परंतु मुझे समझ में नहीं आता है कि राहुल गांधी जी को बार बार चीन की बातों पर इतना प्यार क्यों उमड़ आता है?
The ties between India and China are under severe strain since the Galwan clashes in May 2020. The Indian and Chinese troops are locked in a confrontation in eastern Ladakh for more than 3 years now. Military commanders of the two countries have held 19 rounds of talks but failed to reach an agreement on de-escalation in Depsang and Demchok. The Modi-Xi informal meet comes less than 2 weeks ahead of the G20 summit to be held in New Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today.
And there is another political controversy raging. Government sources say China sought a meeting and the Chinese Foreign Office says India sought this meeting. In fact, AIMIM Member of Parliament and leader Asaduddin Owaisi wants the government to explain, one, who sought the meeting, and two, why, according to him, were details kept under the wraps for an entire day. Joining me on India First is Colonel Dinny, a former infantry officer who commanded his battalion at Pengong So at the line of actual control. Dr. Shama Mohammed leads the Congress charge and Dr. Ajay Alok leads the BJP's counter-offensive. So two good doctors and an infantry officer on the broadcast. Dr. Alok, Rahul Gandhi accuses the Prime Minister of being economical with the truth and insists China has taken thousands of kilometers of our land in Ladakh. Response, sir.
Gaurav, Rahul Gandhi is a contradiction within himself. First, he has to decide whether he loves China or he hates China, or whether he loves his country or he hates his country. He doesn't understand these things. Because if I remember, he was in Cambridge when he said during his slide presentation कि चीन सद्भावना का देश है. When he said that China has a force of nature, China is an aspirational superpower. When he said during his slide presentation, he mentioned about the Belt and Road pathway, what China is building in POK, which we are objecting, but he was praising that. So first, Rahul Gandhi, who is a contradiction within himself, he should decide whether he considers China as an enemy or China as a friend, dearest friend. Because we have seen in 1920, in 2020 also, when Galwan happened, they were having dinner with the Chinese diplomat, Chinese ambassador, I presume. And there was a website mentioning also by the Chinese embassy that yes, there was a dinner and the conversation. So Rahul Gandhi should decide whether he wants to contradict himself.
Okay.
And again, you have to look this statement with a political narrative. I'll tell you why. Rahul Gandhi is on a Ladakh tourism for the last 6 days. It has a reason behind it. He always knew that BRICS is going to happen and Prime Minister Modi will be there and Xi Jinping from China will also come there. And I'll be in Ladakh and I'll issue a statement. Chandrayaan happened day before yesterday. The BRICS happened then and everybody was praising and singing paeans for India, which he cannot digest. So today this useless, atrocious statement like China हमारे अंदर घुस गया है, China ने हमारी जमीन हथिया ली है, where? It is not happening since 2014, sir.
Okay.
Whatever happened, it has happened in the past. And it is the courtesy and legacy of the Congress party, not
Fair
BJP.
enough. Let me get Dr. Shama Mohammed to respond.
तो गलवान में हमारे सैनिक शहीद नहीं होते.
Fair enough, sir. Dr. Mohammed, India and China are currently talking disengagement and de-escalation. That's what the Foreign Secretary said. Where have thousands of kilometers of land been lost, as Rahul Gandhi claims, ma'am?
See, let's understand very importantly, after this 2020, when 20 of our soldiers were martyred, the External Affairs Minister, I remember, said very clearly, they cannot take our land unilaterally. We will not give it to them. So that clearly says that they have been here. Kapir Gao, their member of parliament, said in parliament that the Chinese have got into our land and have taken more than 60 square kilometers of our land. So that is, he was talking about Arunachal Pradesh. So Kapir Gao is not my member of parliament. Again, there are satellites.
Is Rahul Gandhi talking about Ladakh or is Rahul Gandhi talking about Arunachal Pradesh? Where have thousands of kilometers of Indian territory been lost, ma'am?
So let me finish. Of course, it's in Ladakh. And let's understand that there are satellite images. Pentagon has come out and said that there has been loss of land. On top of all this, We know very clearly that 18 corps commander meetings have happened. Now, why are these meetings happening? I fail to understand. Vinay Kwatra, the foreign secretary, today says that there will be disengagement of troops from both sides. We are going to step up the disengagement. Now, they are in our territory, the Chinese. I don't know what disengagement is he talking about. And also, what is the secrecy of this meeting? Why there were no interpreters? Why there is nobody? Why do we not discuss something so important like this in Parliament? See, satellite images cannot lie. You cannot keep lying to people that there has been no incursion. Then why are we talking?
Okay.
I fail to understand. We don't need to talk. It's about disengagement. Why did we have 18 corps commander meetings? I fail to understand. Are you saying the satellite... Wait, let me finish. Are you saying the satellite images are lying? Why is the government of India lying? And let's talk about it in the parliament. Come out clean with it. Everybody is lying out there, including their own members of parliament and even ladies. Like Rahulji clearly said that they've come and said that we cannot graze in certain areas now. And we also know about what has happened in Pangong So, what has happened in the Gogra Hot Springs. So we know what has happened in all these places. We know your said in Demchok and Depsang, they have captured our land. So it is very clear, but why don't you come out and tell us the truth? What has happened? And how do we get it back? And just one question to Ajay Alok. Have we got the status quo position of 2020 or not? Tell us the truth.
Colonel Dini, since you've served on ground, Dr. Shama Mohammed talks of Tapir Gao, a member of parliament from Arunachal Pradesh, 60 kilometers land lost. She talks about Pangong So, where you have served. You tell me, sir, have thousands of kilometers of land been lost, and has this information been withheld from the nation as Congress leader Rahul Gandhi claims?
Absolutely not, Gaurav. We all know that, even 1 kilometer of loss of territory cannot be hidden in the army. That is what I'm trying to tell, straight away at the outset. The reason is all these patrolling points are marked using GPS. So the point you go, the point you come, everything is a mandated requirement of marking on GPS. Taking over takes place on ground with GPS. Every position is marked. So there's no question of hiding these many things. But unfortunately, Gaurav, what I want to definitely mention is what was a national security issue has today become totally a politically a polarized issue, and that is why the truth gets blurred somewhere in. Now what we are talking, as we speak, there are troops facing each other in eastern Ladakh, two nuclear-powered countries facing each other with 60,000 approximately troops are there. They had 7 friction points, 5 of them they have disengaged. Disengaged means they are not having eyeball to eyeball contact. 2 places there are still there is disengagement has not taken place, so anything can happen there. So at that point of time we are having this discussion. So let's not that focus we should never let. Still operations are going on there. So number 1 point. Number 2 point is that the 19 rounds of Corps Commander level talk that has helped in having no violence like what happened in Galwan. If we are not able to talk to each other, I think somewhere down the line there will be the mistrust which is already there will increase, and it can lead into unimaginable consequences like what happened in Galwan. So the talks are good. The talks at all levels are good, whether it is at the brigade commander's level or at the highest level. Now, what we are also should remember is the process is not for solving the border issue. It cannot be solved in this manner. The process which is undergoing now is just to create a scenario wherein there is no chance of a skirmish or a war kind of a thing happening in Ladakh, which both countries want. That is why this entire thing of talk here is
So let's just take this step by step. Let's take this step by step. Dr. Shama Mohammed, the BJP says yes, thousands of kilometers of land was lost. They say 39,000 square kilometers of land was lost, but that was in the time of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru when he turned a blind eye to the situation in Aksai Chin. He was alerted by officers in the government, and yet he turned a blind eye. BJP says the Narendra Modi government has actually countered that salami slicing of Indian territory by Chinese troops, with 60,000 troops now being positioned on ground, madam.
See, we never lie. In 1962, yes, we have lost land. We never lied. We had in Parliament, there was a discussion Vajpayee asked for it. Jawaharlal Nehru had it for 3 days and Panditji told exactly what is happening. We want to know the truth. Why did we, after the 2020 incursion, and when Mr. Modi said, na koi gussa hai and no military post has been taken, we had a lot of issues by suspending we were not using many apps of theirs. We banned the apps. Why did we do that? If it was nothing else, why did we take certain steps as of that? Banning Chinese companies, Chinese apps, certain small little things. But even then, we have a business, they have a trade surplus with us in 22.
Okay, but the thousands of kilometers of land post 1962.
One last point. Please, one last point.
Go on, ma'am.
DGP meeting, the SSP of Ladakh clearly says that out of the 65 patrolling points, we don't have access to 26. So these are not the Congress party saying. You can't say.
I've lost your audio. We'll try and reestablish that audio. My point again remains, thousands of kilometers of land that Rahul Gandhi says, where have those thousands of kilometers of land been lost after Aksai is the question. But Ajay Alok, Rahul Gandhi insists he's spoken to local grazers in Ladakh. They claim they've lost access to traditional grazing ground. They say they are no longer permitted to access traditional grazing ground, and that is the territory that's been lost to China, sir.
First of all, Rahul Gandhi is suffering from obsessive compulsive neurosis. He's under obsession, you can't help him. He'll keep on doing this, what he has been doing since 2020. For my Congress friend, I will just say that you get martyrdom only when you defend the country. Cowards don't get them. When we resisted China, so Galwan happened. And why it happened, I'll tell you. Till 2014, we never had any skirmishes with Chinese troops. Because whenever they used to enter, whether it's a Jorawar fort or whether it is Shemeli, whether it's Damchok, whenever they used to enter, we used to say, okay, the attitude of the Indian government was, okay, let it go. Let it go. Even in 1967, when Indian troop massacred 380 Chinese soldiers, the orders were stop, nothing doing more, and the colonel there was posted back. There's no appraisal for him. So the attitude of the Indian government changed from 2014 when we started developing our border infrastructure. And from 2017, when the border infrastructure was visible, when for the first time we had airstrips, we had tunnels, we had bridges, we had more troops, we had missiles, we had GPS, we had the artillery, everything positioning was happening. Then border skirmishes started happening and the Galwan took place. Because when China started seeing that we are developing the border infrastructure, they were upset. But we don't care for them, even if they are upset. Today, when 19 rounds of talks are happening, that's happening because we are not ready to give an inch away. We want the pre-status to be restored. Okay. It cannot happen that you will have your way. That time is gone.
Yes,
today,
Dr. Shama Mohammed wants to respond to you.
Through diplomatic channel. Through diplomatic channel, we have just isolated China, and China is under pressure to talk to us. And that also they are taking to the advantage that whether India has asked for talks or China has asked for talks. Okay. The point is that we are gaining our ground. That is the most important thing for the country. And what Mr. Rahul Gandhi is doing, he's just making useless, unnecessary statement out of his obsession for Mr. Modi. Okay. Nothing else.
Sir, Dr. Shama Mohammed wants to respond to you. Dr. Shama Mohammed.
Cowards don't get martyrdom, and the coward is Mr. Narendra Modi. And stop abusing Rahul Gandhi. Okay, we know who have got martyrdom for this country. There is Rajiv Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, all of them have given their lives. And we want to know the truth. Our party's always told the truth, whenever in our time there were incursions, we've spoken about in the parliament. My question is, why don't you take members of parliament over there and show them what's the truth? Why is that China has never been discussed in parliament? Only when you have something to hide, you do not want to answer questions and you do not want to discuss it. The SSP of Ladakh clearly says out of the 65 patrolling points, we do not have access to 26. That is not Rahul Gandhi. That is somebody from Ladakh. So try to understand that the whole world cannot be lying. Every Indian is not lying. Your own member of parliament, SSP of Ladakh, the satellite images, then take everybody, take the members of parliament.
Just for the benefit of our viewers, and I want India Today viewers, I want India Today viewers to know the truth.
Rahul Gandhi, when Rahul Gandhi has been speaking truth about COVID, he spoke the truth. We have the last life.
So COVID is not the topic of discussion today. Colonel Dinny, you have better domain knowledge and expertise.
But Colonel Vinay is not there right now, Gaurav. Ask somebody who's there right now. He's a retired...
ma'am,
because I do not, I'm fed up of these lies. Gaurav,
Ma'am,
we have to tell the
ma'am,
truth
do
now.
not cast aspersions at our experts. I will not permit that. That's my humble request to you. Colonel Dinny, you have domain knowledge. Loss of access to traditional grazing ground. Was this post 2020 or has this been a legacy issue?
Gaurav, I'll come straight to that. I just have some data on livestock, which I've got from some local, just some kind of research which I've done there. In 2019, the total livestock was 56,000. In 2020, it came down to 44,500. In 2021, it came down to 28,448. Today, as in 2022, it has gone up to 57,954. That means it has gone more than in 2019, the number of livestock. The reason why the dip was, the reason why the dip was because of COVID issues and because of the deployment which had taken place. But after that, as we speak today, the number of livestock have gone up, which clearly means that the grazing areas have not gone down. It is there, and this is straight from the report on ground where I'm speaking. Secondly, of SSP Leh, this thing also I think we need to clearly understand what SSP Leh has said. Yes, he or she has said 26 petroling points we have lost access. Does she or he has the report of whether the Chinese in the same area, does they have the access? No. Because if you have created a buffer zone, that means neither can they come nor can we go. So it is partially, yes, you're right, that there are areas where we are not going. Absolutely true. But the same area, the Chinese are also not coming. So it is a one-sided story which is there, that we don't have access.
Dr. Shama Mohammed, I want to draw your attention to another report that India Today, or then Headlines Today, broke. This was the Sham Saran report of August 2013, a report that was sent to then Prime Minister Dr. Mohan Singh, and we'll show you excerpts of that report on India Today. Sham Saran, then National Security Advisory Board Chief and former Foreign Secretary, in this report said that India lost 640 square kilometers of land in Ladakh from Depsang to Demchok and Pangong So to incremental Chinese salami slicing. And this is the report, madam, from 2013.
So what I'm trying to say is, at that time, there was democracy and the truth came out, whatever said and done. Now what is happening, everything is hidden. Now, Mr. Ajay Alok was talking about Rahul Gandhi. Now, who is the one who told an interview to Smita Prakash, the foreign ministry, said, we cannot fight China. They're too big for us. So that's very clear what this government is very scared of China. They don't even use the word China anywhere. We know clearly that even in the Gogra hot spring, they came in 4 kilometers and they went back 2 kilometers. What is it called? Salami slicing. And for the colonel who's sitting here, the buffer zone is an hour. It's inside India, not where it used to be before.
Sorry,
it is inside India.
You're wrong, ma'am. It is not in our territory.
I am not wrong, Colonel. I don't know why you're lying out here.
I'm sorry, Dr. Shama Mohammed, please.
Speaking from facts. You may be a political leader, but I'm speaking from facts, and I'm not lying. Okay. Let's talk of facts. Let's talk of Pangong So. Where is the buffer zone? Where is the buffer zone? You tell me, where is the buffer zone? Finger 4 to finger 8 is the buffer zone. From where till where did they come?
Ma'am, because I will not, madam, you cannot cast aspersions at my guest. That is uncalled for. That's completely uncalled for.
That's not true.
You said nobody else can speak.
That's not true.
Why is he
That's not
speaking?
true. You speak of facts. You speak on ground. You don't even know which areas.
Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Dr. Alok, the government is currently talking about disengagement. The government is currently talking about de-escalation. There is no talk about de-induction of troops at the borders. Is that a tall order at this stage then?
Definitely, Gaurav, unless de-escalation and de-engagement happens, you cannot think of de-induction. And we will never think of de-induction. We will maintain our position very strong and in proper strength. Yes, not to eyeball to eyeball contact, but definitely the Leh, Ladakh and the borders area are not going to be the same what it used to be earlier. This is our clear policy that we are not going to let the intrusion happen. Don't forget, Gaurav, your viewers need to know, China was never our neighbor. Who made China our neighbor? Today when Sudhanshu Trivedi, my colleague, was making a press conference, he said that when China was doing intrusions and invasions in Tibet, India was supplying foods to Chinese troops. This is what we did.
Okay.
We never raised Tibet as an international issue. Otherwise, Tibet would never have been a part of China today. And China wouldn't have been our neighbor.
Sir, a legacy
Through
issue
Panchsheel
once
Agreement,
again.
we
A
lost the
legacy
United
issue
Nations
once
Permanent
again.
Council seat. Upside heel,
Dr.
we
Shama
gave.
Mohammed, last 30 seconds. Last 30 seconds, since a point was made about Pandit Nehru, China was not India's neighbor. It is a legacy issue. India's silence. In fact, the BJP has alleged that Pandit Nehru actually, permitted India to give rice to China, to Chinese troops who had invaded Tibet, ma'am. And that actually created the problem for us.
What I'm proud of Pandit Nehru is there was a war, we lost the war, we discussed in Parliament, he told the truth. And that's why I admire the first Prime Minister of India. There's a liar, a coward called Narendra Modi,
Ma'am,
who refuses to discuss it in Parliament.
Remains,
who
as on
refuses to tell the truth. That is the thing.
there are 50,000 Indian and Chinese troops in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation at multiple friction points. Depsang and Demchok, that friction remains, but even at other points, they may have disengaged, but de-induction and it still remains to be done. We'll track that story very closely, but my only hope is that India stands united when you're dealing with an expansionist force like China. We'll track that story closely. For joining me here on India First, many thanks.
The G20 presidency has given India a chance to really take the lead on startups with Startup 20. That can be a major employment generator going forward. I would also like to talk about some of the points where India and the G20 presidency itself this year can really make a big difference. We have actually seen some of these things where India has already taken a big leap. For instance, the digital stack. We all know the kind of steps the digital stack has helped India take as a nation.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a meeting on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Johannesburg. Sources in the Ministry of External Affairs says it wasn't a structured bilateral meeting and described it as an informal meet. MEA sources say there was a pending request from the Chinese side for a bilateral meeting. It was the first direct interaction between the two world leaders after the brief encounter at the G20 summit in Bali in November last year.
Prime Minister underlined that the maintenance of peace and tranquility in the border areas and observing and respecting the LAC are essential for the normalization of the India-China relationship.
The MEA says Prime Minister Modi and President Xi agreed to direct officials to intensify efforts for expeditious disengagement and de-escalation on the line of actual control. The informal Modi-Xi meet over the border standoff in South Africa has stoked a political showdown back home. While the Congress accused the Prime Minister of lying about the border situation, the BJP charged the Congress with helping China during their rule.
चाइना ने हिंदुस्तान की जमीन ली है, हजारों किलोमीटर जमीन हिंदुस्तान की चाइना ने हमसे छीनी है। और दुख की बात है कि हिंदुस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री ने ऑपोजिशन की मीटिंग में कहा कि हिंदुस्तान का 1 इंच किसी ने नहीं लिया है। ये सरासर झूठ है।
2020 में बीजिंग के एक थिंक टैंक ने, जो वहां की गवर्नमेंट से रिलेटेड माना जाता है, उसने ये शब्द प्रयोग किया है कि चाइना इज पासिंग थ्रू इट्स वर्स्ट डिप्लोमेटिक आइसोलेशन पोस्ट तियानमेन स्क्वायर। परंतु मुझे समझ में नहीं आता है कि राहुल गांधी जी को बार बार चीन की बातों पर इतना प्यार क्यों उमड़ आता है।
The ties between India and China are under severe strain since the Galwan clashes in May 2020. The Indian and Chinese troops are locked in a confrontation in eastern Ladakh for more than 3 years now. Military commanders of the two countries have held 19 rounds of talks but failed to reach an agreement on de-escalation in Depsang and Demchok. The Modi-Xi informal meet comes less than 2 weeks ahead of the G20 summit to be held in New Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today.
Hello and welcome once again to India Today's